get to connect. There's something much deeper here. So this, when we recognize, now on an even deeper level, and I'll finish with this point on this particular topic. When we recognize that this itself is the purpose in our creation, this fulfills the very reason why we are created. To connect with God and to create the dwelling place, to recognize that here on earth, me, a little tiny human being, and my world, my life, my home, my job, everything around me, is meant to connect with God, to make that connection to the infinite. Now all of a sudden, it's not just the mitzvah. The mitzvah becomes a conduit for everything about me. And this is why I was created. And I have the opportunity to engage in it. Granted, it's not a bar of chocolate. It's not chocolate. This needs thinking about. It needs contemplating a little bit. But we've been given this opportunity. There's a depth here that's profound. Text 11. Got a lot to still cover, so I'm going to just go with this. It's so quiet, I don't know if I lost everybody or what, but I'm plowing ahead. The entire being the reason for our being, and the reason for the creation of all the worlds, the higher and lower worlds, is so that God will have a home in the lowest world. So not only we're doing something great, we're also doing something that connects us to the very purpose, our purpose, and the purpose of everything. This explains to the Judaism happiness link. So Judaism contributes, or at least should contribute, to our happiness in life because it affords us a relationship with God and to fulfilling our purpose in life. Imagine somebody who finds happiness in, reading literature, reading novels, I don't know. But he can only read Armenian. And he's here in America. And then he becomes literate in English, French. So imagine the kind of joy and happiness that this person will be able to have now that all of this world is opened up for him. When we cherish a mitzvah, we open ourselves up to a treasure that up until now was locked away from us. One of the ways that we can become more mindful of the mitzvah that we do is that we were given also, before we do a mitzvah, we have, and this is meant to help us trigger this mindfulness, is the fact that we're given a bracha to say before we do the mitzvah. The purpose of the bracha, of course, we verbalize, but what's the purpose of verbalizing? It is meant to have us pause and stop and say, here's a special moment, hang on to it. Grab hold of it. This is something amazing. It is meant to help our mindfulness in the mitzvah. So what we learned before in the lessons, what we take for granted doesn't make us happy. If we take it for granted, we lose its value. The purpose of making a bracha is not to take it for granted. It's to get and suck every drop of life out of the mitzvah, to enjoy it, to appreciate it, to grab hold of it. So brachas help us not take the mitzvah for granted. And we say, Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvaysa v'tzivanu. Blessed are you, Lord, our God, who has sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us. This alludes to the connection between God and us that the mitzvah fosters. We say, Asher Kiddishanu, who has sanctified us. So, I'm going to let's see how long we go. One problem with this approach, or it could be a problem for some people, is the fact that with all of the magnificent and happiness-inducing mitzvahs that we have, some of us can be deeply bothered by the fact that maybe I haven't taken the opportunities to do mitzvahs, and maybe my life is filled with a couple of areas that maybe is not exactly I'm not living in the prescribed way that God and the Torah would suggest that it be. And so maybe this is a reason to actually be unhappy or to be sad. And we spoke about this in past lessons, about the fact that for some people, religion itself can be quite the opposite. So it turns out that for that also we have a mitzvah. We also have a mitzvah for all of the missed opportunities. And that mitzvah is called tshuva. And tshuva has in it a connotation not only like any other mitzvah, that it is an opportunity to connect with God over the mistakes, but even more so, tshuva is the one mitzvah that we can go back in time and change the past. At least as far as our relationship with God goes. That's what tshuva means. Tshuva means we can actually remake the past. And that, knowing that I can reconnect with God despite whatever happened in the past, and knowing that not only I can connect with God, but that I can actually remake the past and reframe it in a new way, this itself can be unbelievably joy-inducing. I'll tell you what I mean about remaking. I'll give you the following analogy. David has an 8-year-old daughter, Sarah, and every night he reads to her for 10 minutes before she goes to bed. And they already have a routine. They've been doing this for a while. And they know that on nights that he can't be home, he tells her the night before, listen, tomorrow night I'm not going to make it, I have a meeting or whatever. And they have this, that's fine. They have a deal between themselves and understanding. One particular night, he's out with friends, and it comes, 8:30, or it's drawing near to the time that he would usually put his daughter to bed, and he has not told her the night before that he was going to be out, because he actually didn't plan on it. And he's thinking, it's 8:15, he's got 15 minutes to make it home, and he thinks, it's not the end of the world. I'll hang out. It's okay. I'll make it up tomorrow. Goes, he hangs out, stays out, and he comes home. Comes home at 11 o'clock at night, and his daughter's up waiting for him. She's devastated. She's absolutely beside herself. She is just a wreck. You didn't come home. You didn't read to me. Now he's beside himself. He had no idea how important this time was to her. And not only does he now resolve that this is not going to happen again, there's no way, come hell or high water, that he's going to miss this opportunity. But even more than that, whereas before he got into bed, he kind of read the book but wasn't really present, he read it. Anyone who's a parent has been there, trust me. I've been there. You're there. You're laying down in bed with them, and you're reading, but there's a few more things that have to happen right afterwards that are on your mind. But now, all that's changed. He appreciates now in a different kind of way the value of this time with his daughter. It's a whole different meaning. The depth and how much this means to her, it transforms and changes every minute in the future that he's going to have with her. It's something completely different. So because he messed up, because he really, went against what he said he was going to do, because of this, now he has a new depth in everything that he does from here on in. It is propelled with the fuel of that one night that he missed. He now has a transformed experience from here on in. That is tshuva, my friends. That's tshuva. Tshuva is not only that there's a mitzvah that we do, which is to regret the wrongdoing of the past. Tshuva means in its finest and its most powerful and most profound sense, it means that from here on in, that negative experience, it provides fuel for the future in a completely different way. In a way that somebody who never experienced that longing, that distance, never felt, or perhaps can't even feel. So tshuva can be joy-inducing. We're going to go at least 5 minutes over. Up until, because I want to try to cover the final points. Up until now, we have been discussing the joy of a mitzvah. I want to take it, in the final 10 minutes here, I want to take it one step further. Because up until the time of the Baal Shem Tov, the way most Jewish writings describe the need for joy, they described it as the joy of a mitzvah as we have been describing it now. The Baal Shem Tov introduced something deeper, more and more all-encompassing than just when doing a mitzvah. And there are 3 reasons that he described, and that have become introduced in sort of part and parcel, and these ideas really have pervaded much of Judaism. In fact, the Hasidim, before they became known as Hasidim, they used to be called the Freiliche, the happy ones. These were these Jews who, actually the image of the Hasidim are always these dancing Hasidim. Happy ones. So what was it about? So everybody, or many of you may know, there's a famous song, Mitzvah Gedola Lios B'Simcha Tamid. This is taken from Rav Nachman of Breslov, a grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. It's a great mitzvah to be happy all the time. Why is constant joy a Jewish value? So 3 reasons. Reason number 1 relates to what we spoke about in Lesson 1. In Lesson 1 we learned that it is impossible to get rid of negativity and negative impulses in one's service of God and to do what's right in any given circumstance. If one is lethargic and depressed and down, we tend to kind of let things go and not behave in a way that we're proud of when a person is down and depressed. And so happiness and joy, it allows a person to do what's right in a better and easier and more manageable way. Simply put, that joy is the gateway to being able to serve God constantly. If a person is depressed and down, when you're depressed is when you break your diet, right? That's when the tub of ice cream comes out at 1 o'clock in the morning, and before you know it, the whole thing's done. The same thing happens with mitzvahs and Torah and Judaism and everything. I'm not going to shul today. I'm angry at God or whatever. I'm angry at, somebody who hurt my feelings. Now I don't want to get out from under the covers. So the first reason is simply because joy is the gateway to being able to do the right thing constantly. Number 2, it's common for us to think of 2 different distinct areas of life. Our Jewish life, the Jewish stuff, I go into a lot of homes and they have a Jewish drawer, the Jewish drawer. That's where the yarmulkes go. There's a few loose Hanukkah candles somehow that made it in there. That you guys are all laughing. You know exactly what I'm talking about, every one of you. There's the Jewish drawer, right? So we have the Jewish drawer in our life, right? That's the part where, okay, you got to do this, you got to do that. There's certain Jewish duties that we have to do. Maybe there's a yard side. We say Kaddish or light a candle. Then there's the high holidays. There's, before Pesach, you got to buy matzah, whatever. There's the Jewish stuff. And then there's the rest of life. Then there's real life. So, of course, that is something that, as far as Judaism is concerned, is completely backward. every part of our life is meant to be infused, as we've discussed for the past 6 weeks, with meaning and with serving God. It's true. It's not necessarily a mitzvah at every moment. But every single thing we do is part of God's purpose and part of our purpose here in this world. We serve God in the mundane, in the everyday, in everything that we do. And so we turn to this. So every single thing, whether it's a game of chess or a game of baseball, or our work and our consulting, whatever it might be, there's always something there that is part of our purpose. And finally, there is, so as much as mitzvahs and mitzvah-like behaviors are indispensable, there's a closeness to God that can be achieved simply through one's mind. Simply in the mind. And we'll take this text on text 17a on page 212. Talk about this for just another minute or two. There is another way to experience genuine joy of the soul, especially when you recognize at appropriate times that you need to purify and illuminate your soul with the gladness of the heart. Think deeply and picture in your mind the subject of God's true unity, how He permeates all worlds higher and lower, and how even this earth, all of it, is His glory. So this is a very, very profound idea that we're going to talk about just for 2 minutes, and I'll try to summarize it. The unity of God, Hashem Echad, we say the statement of Judaism is Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. The Lord our God is one. Usually we tend to think of this, that there's one God and not a whole bunch of little gods, or many gods. But actually it means something far more profound. It means that everything in this world is a part of God. It is one with God. There is nothing else but this unity, this oneness. That is all that there is. And even though things seem fragmented, and things seem messed up, and there's evil, and there's good, and we have all kinds of questions, Hashem Echad means it's all one. There is only one creator, one master of all of this. The implication of this is, so that wherever we are, wherever we find ourselves, whatever circumstances we're in, God is very near. God is in that circumstance together with us. Right in that circumstance. And as he says in 17b, therefore, when we think deeply and persistently about God's unity, our heart will celebrate and your soul will rejoice. This conscious faith in God's unity is so significant because it constitutes a genuine closeness to God. And the Alter Rebbe gives an example. Think of how much a common, lowly person would rejoice over being close to a mortal king when a king accepts the commoner's hospitality and comes to dwell with him in his home. Now multiply that ad infinitum for our experience of closeness and dwelling with God, the King of Kings. So you wouldn't feel close to the king if you didn't know that he showed up in your house. Because you didn't know. You didn't see. He's in the guest room and you didn't know he's there. It doesn't change the fact that he's there. You just don't know it. But once a person becomes aware that the celebrity is sitting right there in my home, in my living room, he's right there with me constantly, with my kids and in my kids, and with my spouse and in my spouse, and with me and in me, and in my furniture, and in my home. Knowing that God is there with me, that itself is can cause and can affect a profound joy and contentedness and happiness within us. Final point is that not only does it create a joy, but when we recognize that, the recognition itself, the knowledge in our mind that God is there with us, is the ultimate dira b'tachtonim. It is the ultimate creating a dwelling place for God in us. Knowing that we are one with Him, that is the dwelling place. So we make a dwelling place through doing a mitzvah. We make a dwelling place out of the tefillin. We make a dwelling place out of the candle and out of the Shabbos table. And we make a dwelling place out of ourselves when we recognize the oneness and the unity. And this is a profound, acquired taste, a joy that is deep, that is satisfying, not easy to come by. It needs mindfulness, it needs thought, it needs contemplation, but unbelievably profound and deep. I said 5 after. So to conclude our course, everything we've discussed until now, by the way, you'll all be tested on all this material. We figured it was light until now, we'll go heavy. The central theme that we've discussed over the last 6 weeks has been that one climbs the happiness ladder by way of the mind. Our title, How Happiness Thinks. To conclude the course, I want to finish with one opposite perspective. And that is that from the knowledge of Jewish wisdom, we know finally that despite everything we've said about the mind, which is all true, we don't always have to wait for the mind to get there. We can start with the action. Text 18 on page 214. At all times, assume a demeanor and mannerisms as if your heart was full of joy, even if at the moment this is far from the case. Such behavior will eventually lead to truly feel happy because behaviors and actions impact the heart. This has been in text 19, there's a well-known study about people who were asked to put a pen in their mouth. And it forced their muscles, they didn't even know that they were doing this, it forced their muscles to act like they were to do